She went with me to Iceland and it was her first time. And I feel like not only is this moody and haunting that I like feel like it is, but to me, it reminds me of my mom got to see this. Like my mom literally got to see what black sand is.
Welcome to Wild Development Studio. Join us as we venture into the breathtaking realm of wildlife arts and untamed adventures. With captivating stories from the field and ideas to dive into the visual arts, we'll ignite your passion for conservation. Get ready to develop something wild.
Welcome to Wild Developments. I'm your guide, Lauren. In a touching exploration of a life enriched by Wanderlust, young author Autumn Carolyn invites readers to journey with her on her upcoming book release, Traveling in Wonder, a travel photographer's tales of Wanderlust. This compelling narrative details Autumn, a former flight attendant, reflecting on her extensive travels to 30 countries over the course of 30 years. From her early experiences as a student abroad to her roles as a flight attendant and travel agent, she brings the reader on a journey of personal growth, self-discovery, and the courage it takes to embrace the unknown. Traveling in Wonder serves not only as a fascinating story of travels, but also as a sincere love letter to oneself. Through vivid storytelling, Autumn encourages readers to find courage in both the act of exploration and in the acceptance of life's everyday challenges. Autumn Carolyn received her bachelor's degree in English with an emphasis in creative writing from Illinois State University and Canterbury Christ Church University. She is a published author with Spoon River Poetry Review and has worked as an on-air DJ for 2 radio stations. Autumn produced a creative writing segment aired on WGLT, an NPR radio station, which introduced writers from all over the Midwest and allowed them to share their work on air. Beyond her literary achievements, Autumn is an award-winning travel photographer, owner of Autumn Carolyn Photography. Her works can be found in multiple galleries, including the prestigious Northrop King Building, one of the largest art complexes in the United States. Autumn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And you just recently wrote a book, Traveling in Wonder. Why did you choose the goal of traveling to 30 countries before 30 years?
Sure. 30 countries in 30 years started when I was a flight attendant, but it was actually a different goal prior to that. So I had an idea to go to 13 countries in 13 weeks when I studied abroad in Canterbury, England. And every weekend I would take off to a new country, sleep in the airport on Thursday nights, fly out Friday morning, and then stay in that new country until Monday evening, and then come back right in time for my classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
That sounds really busy, but
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So how did it evolve into something bigger? Are you like, I did 13, I can keep it going?
Sure. So I kind of had this idea when I was being a flight attendant because I was traveling to different places, and my main goal was that by the time I turned 30, I wanted to hit all 7 continents. And I'll give you a hint, I did not hit one. You can take a wild guess on which one that is. And
I'm gonna guess it's the coldest.
yes, you are right. And so when I had this idea when I was a flight attendant, I was like, I want to see if I can try and like push myself more. And I think I want to try and do 30 and 30 because it seems like I could achieve that. And it seems something that I could be able to like work towards. So that's kind of how it got started.
So when you set out with this goal, was the goal at the end always to write a book about the experience, or did you decide that later on?
So me having the idea to write a book, it started when we were in the pandemic, and I had already reached I think I had reached 28 or 27 countries at that point. And I was taking all of my travel journals and typing them into a Word document because I had so much time on my hands. And I was thinking, in case there's like a fire or something, I think I want to write these down into like into electronic document, I mean. And when I was processing and taking those from the physical journals and putting them into the Word document, I kind of had this idea of, I don't know if people would be interested in reading about this, but I think I want to try and make this into a book because it has a different concept. And then that's just what sparked everything was my actual travel journals.
Do you recommend that everybody do travel journals? I know for me, like it really helps you to get back to that moment. It's almost like a little time machine for yourself.
Yes, right. I definitely do. I think that it can be really hard to keep track of in the moment because a lot of times when you're traveling from place to place, you could get so tired and you're out of it and you just want to sleep or you just want to take in the moment when you're on a train or on a plane. But I have felt strongly that those times are the perfect times to journal when you're sitting somewhere stationary and you're waiting for something, or you're on a plane or on a train and you're on a mode of transportation and you're able to write down what happened during that day. Even if it's something small, I still think that it's a really good idea. So that way you're able to keep up with it. And then you can look back on it years later and remember that one place that you ate something and it was just amazing.
Well, I'm glad you turned your journals into a book. And also, I thought it was very unique at the start of each chapter, new country. You have like what the weather was like and how much things cost and the things that you packed. That really helps me because if I want to go there, like, okay, this is what Autumn did and it worked for her. Maybe, I need to change something up. What made you decide to make that part of the book?
Thank you. I had this idea to put it together at the front of the book because in my travel journals, I started doing that. I started writing down the people that I met and where I went to eat and the mode of transportation. And I don't know if it was just something that I wanted to keep for myself as knowing, like, oh, okay, well, this is what the temperature was today, and this is what it's going to be tomorrow. But I think that keeping that little insert at the front of each country has really helped me for booking future countries too, because now I look back on it and it's like, okay, what are my list of goals that I want to go and see? What are the things that I want to do? How much do I want to spend on this? So, yeah, thank you so much.
It sounds like you're really intentional. And then that way you're able to kind of hit the things that you want to hit when you're in your new countries. So how did living abroad change your perspective?
Yes, living abroad changed my, it changed everything for me. It was something that I was able to take up a completely different culture and experience it for the first time, but not in a way of, oh, I'm going to be here just for 3 days and I have to soak it all in, but actually in the idea of I'm walking to school and I'm going to walk back home and it's going to be like this for, however many months that I'm here. And, you go grocery shopping at the same place, but it's all different from the US. And I think it just opened and broadened my my brain because there are things like, I know this is so silly, but there are things like people in the UK roll their own cigarettes, and they like actually roll it out. And I watched my roommates doing it versus here in the US, people buy cigarettes. And that was just like a totally different thing. And there's a washing machine that's in my kitchen that's, not there and they don't have dryers. You hang everything up on lines outside. And it was really interesting to go through.
How do you begin to prepare for something like that? Or do you feel like in many ways you were unprepared and you're just kind of a student and learning in the moment?
I So my prep for studying abroad and doing this was I put all of my clothes in one carry-on, and then I put my carry-on in a bigger luggage. So what I could do is when I was going to the different places, I could take the souvenirs or the little things that I had, train tickets and things I wanted to keep, and I put them in the bigger luggage that was empty. And then I took my carry-on with me everywhere. So this was a way for me to be able to be on the go and have only a set of clothes that I would use every single trip and then be able to bring stuff back.
Okay, so how do you pare down? Because I am the type of person when I pack, all of a sudden I suddenly need 50 pairs of underwear to go somewhere for
Yes.
the weekend. I'm like, why did
Yes.
I do that to myself?
Yeah.
So how do you get in the mindset of like, okay, I know that this is the only things that I'm going to need?
Yes. I will have to say, bringing dish or laundry detergent has been my savior with this because I've washed clothes in the middle of a sink in airports before. I watched them, there's places in hostels, and being able to reuse or rewear the clothing has been really helpful. But I think the main thing in my head that I had to keep on telling myself is I can't be traveling if I have so much stuff, and I have to be able to knock it down, which is so funny now because as I get older, I want to bring more things than when I did when I was younger. So I find myself struggling now that when I go on a trip, I will have bags of stuff and I'll look at myself and be like, how did you do this when you were like 10 years, 10 years ago, and you could be able to do this with like just a carry-on. So I still battle that.
Yeah, it's hard because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to need this random game. Like
Yeah.
I always bring like a bag of games. My family just
Yeah.
relies on me to bring the entertainment, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Gosh, what is your one? Because you were a flight attendant too. So do you have like a one item that is like your go-to, you have to have like a security blanket type thing for when you travel?
Yes. I would want to say my phone. I would want to say my travel journal, but I'm going to be totally weird about this. I have a plain outfit that I wear on every trip, and it's the same outfit, and it is tried and true because it makes me comfortable on like long flights, and it's just a pair of leggings, and then I have a long t-shirt that's cotton, and I have a vest that is fleece, and the vest has all different pockets so I can put my passport, I can put my wallet and my phone and headphones, and I don't have to worry about digging in my bag for things when I'm going through security or going through to get a coffee when you're in the airport. I tell you what, though, that airplane outfit has been such a clutch on all these places. And I think I really, I would guess that would be my security blanket because I feel like I'm confident in it.
That's a good tip. I'm gonna have to try that because we're traveling to San Antonio in a few weeks. That's the worst when you're like scrambling through your bag to find something in
Yes.
the crowded airport.
Right, right. Yeah.
And you're a photographer too. You got beautiful photographs. And I really appreciate that in the book, the pictures are color
Thank
because a
you.
lot of times they're black and white and it's like, oh, you
Yeah.
don't get the full scope of everything. But as a photographer and you're traveling, like like what kind of camera do you use? How do you,
Sure.
pack extra batteries and all that kind of stuff?
I use a Sony a 6400. I have, I think, four batteries that I use, and then I have a rechargeable battery pack. And then I bring one or two lenses with me. But in my book, a lot of the gear that I used wasn't actually Sony. It was a Nikon D5100 with a 18 to 270 Tamron lens. And that was my tried and true. I could show up anywhere. I just had one lens with me. I had two battery packs for it, and then the rechargeable battery pack, and that's all I took. And it worked out really well.
That's good to know because I'm
Thanks.
always like, I need to bring my 600 millimeter lens, and
Yes,
oh,
yes.
like, what if I miss that one shot? But
Yeah, yeah.
it's good to know you can still take really good shots.
Thank you.
What do you use a tripod when you're out there? Or do you have any tips for somebody that's out there traveling and wanting to take photos?
Yes. So I don't use a tripod. I've often debated between if I should bring one on my future trips or if I should just leave it. But every time that I'm traveling, I'm I find myself thankful that I didn't bring one because I feel like if I were to have it, it would be extra baggage on me. And because my type of travel is going from place to place to place and seeing, all I can within a short amount of time, I think just being on the go, being able to snap, but that also means that it's a trade-off because there are some photos and a lot of photos that are blurry because they're not set up with a tripod. They're not set up in a professional way. It's just me with the fleeing hands. I also think, though, that you can get really creative. I've used things like putting my camera on the ground and positioning it up. I've used things like setting it on top of cars and using the auto release so that way it can take the clear picture, especially with astrophotography. That's something that I have been like trying to dabble more into.
Do you have like maybe a setting that you use? Because I mean, if you're traveling, you're in the cities, you could be, in the woods. There could be fast things, there could be slow things. I mean, what do you have something where you're like, I know I want my ISO at this and my shutter speed at this, and I am good to go in most environments?
Sure. So I'll let you in on a secret. Okay. A lot of times when I took my my photos when I was just starting off, I used auto all the time. It was something that I didn't have to worry. I just used auto. I was traveling everywhere and it just was something that was easy and I didn't have to think twice about it. Now being more experienced when it comes to my camera, I shoot in RAW and I have my manual settings that I do. So I always try and figure out what the forecast is going to be. And I kind of use the rule of if it's like a really sunny day, making sure that my ISO is set to 100 or 200 and just making sure that everything is really clear and not too brash with the images.
I feel like there's such a stigma around auto.
I know,
And
right?
it's
Yeah.
like if you have an eye for it, you have an eye for it. I started off in auto too. I don't think, and
Yeah,
every
right.
once in a while, if it's like a really stressful situation, I'm like, I'm going to throw that into
Yeah.
auto because I don't want to
Yes,
miss a shot. You know,
exactly.
I'd rather
Uh-huh.
get the shot than be like, oh, I know, right? Off
Yes,
the top of my
yes.
head, I needed these settings. So
Yeah, yeah.
it definitely helps if you want to be more artistic further down the line, auto exposure bracketing and
Yeah,
all
uh-huh.
that stuff. But yeah, I think we need to get rid of that stigma with
Yeah,
auto.
yeah. Exactly. That is so true because I do use auto still. And I think I use it more as I think I try and push myself to be manual because in my head I'm like everyone else is manual. You have to be manual, Autumn. Like you've got to be able to figure this out like on a quick whim when you're traveling. But then the other half of me is like you did auto for all those years and your pictures were good. Like it's okay that you're in auto. So it's that battle, I think, for
Mm.
me at least.
Yeah, I feel the same. So out of all the photos that you've taken, like I was on your website, I was looking at all the sea turtles and the
Oh,
lizards and the
thank
green-eyed
you.
tree frogs. And what would you say is your favorite?
This one. This
It's
one is
very
my
moody. I like it.
thank you. It's the
Is that the one
yeah,
on the cover too? I'm
yeah,
like,
it
wait,
is.
this one looks different, but backwards. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it is the one that's on the cover. Yeah.
I love it. Where is that one taken at?
It is taken in Iceland. and it's taken in the South Beach. It's Vik, the black sand beach, in South Iceland. And I took the trip with my mom, and it was something that my mom has been diagnosed with macular degeneration, and she has been fighting with time basically because the doctors have said that she's already categorized as blind, but that is going to keep on going. And I had a really hard time with this because I don't have the best eyes, and I've been really struggling with that as well. And I talk about this in my book because I talk about what it's like to be afraid of that, but also what it's like to have someone who you love go through something that is really hard. And she does not travel out of the country. She is very much afraid of going to different places. And I tried to convince her to go to Iceland because I kept on saying, like, just go somewhere that you've not been before, Mom. Like, I think we should go. And so she went with me to Iceland, and it was her first time. And it was, I feel like not only is this moody and haunting that I like feel like it is, but to me, it reminds me of my mom got to see this. Like my mom literally got to see what black sand is. And that just means like, yeah, that knocks everything out the water.
Beautiful. And that would be so scary. And I'm, losing your
Yeah.
sight and going somewhere new. So obviously, I mean, you're her daughter, so of course she trusts you. But like to go to a whole new country, Iceland sounds so far away.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. She struggled. She's like, I don't know what they say here. I don't know what the food is like. But we got through it. And so now she tells all of her friends that she got to see a volcano and got to be on the Blue Lagoon. And now she's very happy about it. But in the
oh.
moment, it was a little bit of a struggle.
It does sound like beautiful memories.
Thank you.
Out of the photos that you have, which would you say is your best seller, and why do you think that resonates with people?
I would have to say the one that is my bestseller. This one is very like up there, but it's actually a photo of Hobbiton in New Zealand on the set of Lord of the Rings. I
Oh,
think
wow.
that one has sold consistently. And I think because it has that double meaning of what Lord of the Rings means to people, and there will be people that will show up with tattoos in my art fair booth, and it'll be the same picture that I have. And, we'll take the picture of their tattoo with my photo, and it's really fun. But I definitely think that that's probably my top seller for other people.
Yeah, I find that interesting always because as a photographer, obviously we know the story behind the photo and it can mean a lot more to us. And sometimes I'm like, why isn't this one photo selling? Because I love it so much. And why don't other people connect to it the same way that I do? But
Yes.
and then I wonder like, why is this thing that, I took in a split second and you haven't thought about since, why is that one selling so much more?
Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I find that very interesting. Do you have tips for women who travel alone?
Yes. I would recommend the first thing I want to say is don't be afraid to go someplace. Don't be too scared to travel because I think that often held me back a lot. And it continues to hold me back a lot. But with that, I would also say to just be smart about the way that you travel. And it's sad that I have to, say it like that, but I would I would recommend, traveling when it's light out, when there's daylight, making sure that your transfers are during the day and not at night, because I've learned. um, and making sure that when you're going places, you're confident of where you are. And there's this one insert that I have in the book that's talking about my trip to Hungary, and I'm in this place and I don't know where I'm going and I'm trying to get to my hostel and there's this group of men that are following me and they split into two and then the first half of the group of men start going in front of me and the first front start to slow down but the back start to speed up and I'm caught right in the middle. And I was like praying, like, God, please get me out of this situation. There was this one lone butcher shop with this woman that had a meat cleaver. And I ran in there, I shut the door. It was raining. I was a mess. I was like, please, I'm scared. There's this group of men following me. She doesn't speak English. She keeps motioning to the meat, like, which one do you want? And I'm like, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. Like, I'm sorry, that's not what I'm here for. But eventually she was able to get me to the place that I needed to go. And I did not encounter those men again. But I think making sure that you know where you're going when you're traveling, and if not, finding people that have positions of they're at work to ask them where to go. So people that are working at the train station, people that are, if there's a nearby hotel, walking up to the hotel and asking people that are behind the front desk, hey, I'm lost and I don't know where I'm going. I think those are probably the most helpful tips that I've encountered.
That's an intense story. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you found a woman with a meat cleaver when you did.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Wow. I traveled by myself for the first time. Well, I've done it for work, but that was different because, I was in Florida or whatever. But I went out to the mountains in Cades Cove and I took my dog with me. So that was how, because I was spending multiple days, I knew I was going to be alone. It was like a solo retreat thing. And I'm like, well, I'm going to
Wow.
at least bring my husky with me. And
Oh, wow.
they're not really notorious for being protective, but she looks
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So that's good advice, to make sure you know where you're going and that there are workers and they will help you out. Have you ever used like Google Translate or anything like that? Or
Yes, when I first started traveling, I didn't have any Wi-Fi. I didn't have an international plan at all. So I honestly just had to use a map and had to figure out the language myself or, try and figure out someone who knew English. But recently, my husband and I have been traveling more to Asia, and I have an international plan now when I travel. And that has been such a clutch, being able to have the Google Translate, especially for menus, because I don't eat meat. I can take a picture of it and it can translate what's on the menu to English on my phone. And then I can be able to read through it and see what I can eat and what I can't.
it is such an amazing tool.
Yes,
I got
yes.
hot chocolate mailed in from Italy because they do different than we do. You probably
Yeah.
know, you've traveled. And I didn't realize that the instructions were going to be in Italian.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
how am I
Uh-huh.
going to prepare this thing? So I used the
Yes.
Google Translate and it just instantly showed me. I'm like, that's incredible.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
The world is getting smaller.
I know. I know.
So all of this, the travel in the book was before 2020, and I'm sure have traveled since. How has the pandemic changed the travel landscape?
Yes, I would say the pandemic has, I don't want to have a negative aspect on it because one could say that people are more standoffish or people are less likely to be friendly, like I've experienced in the pandemic or before prior to it. Um, Honestly, I really do think technology has been awesome. I think the idea of social media with Reels and TikToks now, I can I can search on there that I want to go to Tokyo and it can show me the top reels and those reels will have countless ideas of what to do. And it can show me where I want to go, or if there's a bucket list item that I think might be really helpful. And I feel like that has been such a game changer for me because I've learned so much from just scrolling on TikTok or, because prior to that, I would be okay, I'm going to do TripAdvisor, I'm going to do Viator, I'm going to go on and see what the top 10 things to do in the city are. But I think with the abundance of social media now, I'm able to look at it and take a step back and say, these are might be some niche things that not a lot of people know. And I think I want to try some of them.
That's a really good tip. And you're right. Like I do go to social media more than, maybe Google or something like that to get some ideas. That's a great tip.
Thank you.
Do you have, oh, what was I was going to say something about the pandemic. When I was finally able to travel again, we booked a flight and we went to St. Croix, and that's a flight that I don't know that I would have ever done. I hate flying. Maybe I should be talking to you about how to get over like turbulence and stuff like that. But we booked a flight and we went to St. Croix, and it was just like, oh, I'm finally free and I get to see the
Yes.
world. And it made me want to explore more because I couldn't
Yes.
before.
Yes, definitely.
So have
And
you, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say the safest part and the most sturdy part on a plane is to get a seat right by the wing.
Really?
Yes. So if you have motion sickness or if you're afraid of turbulence, I always like to get not the exit row, but the one behind it or two rows behind it, because you're going to have a sturdy flight compared to the other portions of the plane. And statistically, it's the safest.
That is good to know. That explains why we were coming from Seattle to Cincinnati last year, and I was in the very last seat, and the turbulence over the mountains was
Oh no.
horrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
the woman next to me was crying and praying, and
oh my gosh.
it was bad. Um, so yeah, I'm not a fan of flying, but it does get
Yeah.
you places a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Hey, did you ever experience any bad yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I've experienced turbulence a few times. Nothing where I had to go to the hospital, but I do know of a lot of flight attendants that have experienced that. To me, it's very different because I don't know. I kind of feel I have a lot of like faith in the people who built the plane, because I have friends that are engineers that work on planes. Like I have people that like I've talked to a ton of maintenance people, and I like going through the training that we have to go through. They kind of like break down everything. And I wish I could just like let people know, or like, have people go through the training that we had to go through, because I feel like it would help so much more with turbulence and with fear. But that being said, I have been through some really scary turbulence, and it is terrifying when you're in it because you have no clue what's going on and you don't have control of the situation, and you're just sitting in the seat and you can't move, and you're just having to make sure that you're where you are in your space is like you're okay where you are. So it's a tough, you know, bag to be both like, I'm confident in the people that have built this, but then at the same time, when you're in it, you're like, I'm not, no, this is not how I'm feeling. So yeah.
So you're not a flight attendant anymore, right?
No.
How can we be better travelers? How can we help the stewards out? Because I mean,
Yes.
flight attendants, they have a hard job. So how can we
Yeah.
help them out?
Oh, okay. So when you are a flight attendant and you're watching people come into the cabin, we have these things that we have to look out for that's called ABP, able body persons. And we have to identify like six or nine, depending on the amount of people that are in the flight, able-bodied persons that can be able to assist in case of an emergency. So we're kind of scanning, excuse me, as people are walking in and we say hi. In our mind, we're actually saying, okay, this person would be a good able-bodied person, this person would be a good one, making sure that we know where their seats are. And my tip that I do is when I walk on, I say, if you need anything, let me know. Like kind of letting them know, like, hey, I can be an ABP. Like I've been through the training. I know how to evacuate in case of an emergency. And I've never, nothing like, knock on wood, nothing has ever happened that I've had to be an ABP. But I think when a flight attendant is able to be like, oh, cool, okay, they're aware and they know that like we can use them in case of an emergency. I think when I was a flight attendant, that was super helpful for me because then I don't know, I know that's a weird thing, but that's my flight attendant brain is thinking that.
Oh, that's a great tip. I'm gonna use that next time. Thank you. We are almost out of time. So where can people find you?
Yes, people can find me on autumncarolyn.com and it's with two N's. And on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, I am Autumn Carolyn Photography. And on YouTube, I'm Autumn Carolyn Photography as well.
And I'll be sure to tag all those in the show notes and in the blog so people can hop on over and see all your amazing photographs.
Thank you.
And what is one tip you have for someone that would like to connect with nature?
I believe strongly that indulging your five senses into nature is the number one thing. A lot of times in my travel journals, what I'll do is when I want to take in a moment, and if I'm out in the world and I'm in this forest, I'm looking up at these trees, I'll like purposefully say like, okay, I'm smelling this, I'm tasting this, I'm hearing the sounds from the birds. I can feel my feet on the ground. And I think that really opens up and makes me have to really think about where I am in that moment and makes me present in the moment versus if I'm just like, oh, cool, and then taking a picture, it's not really a moment that I can look back on and be like, wow, I remember what it felt like to smell that like deep sense of the woods up in that mountain in Austria. And it just was awesome.
It is a great tip. And I totally agree. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so happy that this worked out and I just had a blast. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And until next time, get outside and see what develops.
Thanks for joining Wild Development Studio. We hope this exploration into the world of wildlife arts and adventure has sparked a desire to get outside and connect with something wild. If you have an adventure that's awe-inspiring, don't hesitate to share. Click the link in the description to submit your story to have it featured on our show or be a guest. Until next time, keep connecting to the wild and see what develops. The views, opinions, and statements expressed by individuals during Wild Development Studio productions do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Wild Development Studio or its affiliates. Participation in any activities, expeditions, or adventures discussed or promoted during our content may involve inherent risks. It is strongly advised that individuals conduct thorough research, seek professional guidance, and take all necessary precautions before engaging in any such activities. Wild Development Studio, its representatives, or employees shall not be held responsible for any injury, loss, damage, accident, or unforeseen incident that may occur as a result of participating in activities inspired by or discussed in our content. By choosing to engage with our content or act upon any information provided, individuals do so at their own risk and discretion.